Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks and I have been so busy at the allotment. I have made some big changes to the shed and I've also made some updates and progress on my in-ground growing space that I'm going to be sharing with you in today's plot tour. So it is just about to start to rain, so I am going to run into the plot, set us up in the shed, give you a little update on what has been going on the last 2 weeks. Good gosh, it is absolutely hammering it down out there. The heavens have completely opened. There's a black sky the whole way across the allotments. That was a quick dash to the car to get all my bits so that I can obviously set out for the day at the allotment. So you might obviously notice a few little changes. So the start of the tour is happening in the shed, and then I'm going to take you outside when the rain obviously dies down a little bit and show you all the changes. But you might obviously notice a few changes in the shed. Notably, the potting bench has completely gone. So about 2 weekends ago at Easter, I decided to take that out. And I did actually film a good bit of it whilst I was up here, what I was getting up to. But when I arrived over the Easter weekend, I don't know what was going on. It was like a little mini festival up here and there was a PA system. I'm going to be planting out some beautiful calendula. There was music. And there was about 50 cars, there was taxis arriving, dropping people off. So it was obviously a hive of activity. But obviously I did record, and when I played it back, it was like you couldn't obviously hear me talk over the various renditions of Mariah Carey and Beyonce. So it came then to Sunday, Easter Sunday. I thought it's a good day. I'll get up, the parties are over, and I will do another day of trying to shoot. So I came up and it turned into wash your polytunnel day. So there was generators on site, power washers going. I could hear the generators like moving down the plot and then up the allotment, that kind of way. So absolutely cool. Everyone's trying to get ahead and obviously get all the algae off their polytunnels. But I think Easter weekend is probably going to be one of those every single year. I kind of feel like it's like an annual routine that happens up here. I wasn't to know. And obviously I didn't film at home because the kids were like wired on sugar and Easter eggs and chocolate, and they were just flinging around my area where I was, obviously having the time of their life. So I think Easter is maybe a weekend I just take to myself and not try and film because I was well up against the odds. And then obviously I'm filming this the following week after, and we had Storm Kathleen yesterday and it was just so blustery. I couldn't obviously bring the camera out because it would just fall over every time I tried to set it up. So it's been a challenging couple of weeks in terms of filming, but such a productive couple of weeks in terms of the garden. So bringing you into obviously the garden space, my first part of the allotment tour is my shed, and you will obviously possibly see that I have made some changes to this space. I have completely taken out the potting bench. I know so many of you really enjoyed the potting bench, and I did too. And I did think it was a really good potting bench with the position and where it was up against the windows. But I actually felt that when I was in here, it was just very linear. Like me and Rue would be trying to get around each other and we could only have like this sort of like linear space to walk through. And I just feel like when you get your shed, you kind of want it to be yours, don't you? And I wanted to put my own little stamp on it. So I took it out, and I wasn't too happy with the struts of wood that were underneath holding the potting bench up. They had been gnawed away by obviously the rats from before I took over this plot. So I wanted to rip it out and put my own little stamp on it. So I took it all out and I've separated the shed into 2 spaces. So what I have is a little sort of like raised bed on the left here for Rue. So I've got her bed up there. I've actually just thrown up a couple of my bags there because the shed is still leaking, if anybody was interested. And if I put my bags there, the water will drip into them. So I did actually go and look for the sealant paint and I couldn't find any. So I've got a couple of other hardware stores to check before I can actually seal those kind of tack holes and small leaks on this. And then that will be the final job on the shed. And then what I've done is I made, like, you can literally like walk all the way through this area, and in front of me is my potting bench. So I've got a stack of pallets 6 high, and this is where I'm going to do my potting bench. And what I've done is I have various mounts in the shed to allow me to fix my camera, fix some lighting, and then I can obviously then move everything around to then obviously bring you along for what I'm doing. So I have a mount in the back, I've got a mount up here, and I've got a mount where you are. And then that means then I can interchange cameras, lighting, and the problem I was finding is that when the sun comes up over the plot, it actually comes up this way, I get a massive reflection off my neighbour's polytunnel, and I have quintessentially pale Irish skin. So I can't control the lighting, and then the shot gets completely blown out and it's like someone's putting a flashlight down the camera. So I think if I'm able to work in this space with less windows, I can then obviously maybe like, I can put a light there, I've got the camera there, and then I have a secondary camera on the ceiling, so that if I'm like potting on or things like that, that you guys can obviously see, and it gives me a bit more variety. So I know that's a bit more of the techie side of things, but I suppose what I'm going to bring you in is show you where they all are, and a little bit, I suppose, of behind the scenes of how I put together a little bit of a video, only like just where I position stuff, if you're interested. And I think that's going to be really helpful for me to be able to create videos. So yeah, that's kind of the update on the shed. If you were on the live, I just want to give you a little bit of context. You can obviously go back and watch the live. I did my first live literally like, what, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, or a week ago. And I was talking about building a polycube. So the idea is to obviously cut through this pane and this pane of the shed, and this be the walkway into the polycube. So that's the idea, and this is the positioning of where I'm hoping it will go. And then obviously, someone did mention obviously to keep a little cover over that, to stop the humidity coming back into the shed, so I can obviously incorporate that into the plans. And then it means then obviously on the initial plan that I showed you in the allotment plan when I did the seed sowing about three weeks ago, where the water butt is and the chicken coop perch, that'll all be used as hopefully polytunnel kind of grow space. But I don't know when I'm going to get around to doing that. If I can get it done this season, oh, that would be like 10/10. I'd be super happy with that. But I obviously have some other plans that are going to take priority in the tiny garden at home, in terms of like getting my greenhouse up and running and that kind of thing. So it's in the plans, but to be confirmed on when I'll be able to get to it. And so that sums up the shed space and the updates. And for the rest of the tour, I'm going to take you back out the front, and I'm going to walk you into the plot just so you can see it, how I did this morning. And I was feeling so chuffed with it and all the little changes. So let's go. So as you come down to the plot, this is what it kind of looks like from the road. I did say I cleared most of it. I do have 3 items remaining. If somebody would like to rehome a filing cabinet, I would be ever so grateful because it's so heavy. So it feels super cool to actually be able to stand here and see the extra space that I have for this area. So obviously the plans to move the fence that's here, pull it out so I get the extra bed and a half space. So I'm super happy with that. I'm going to do a mixture of like vegetables and then front that with a bit of a flower border that will extend then the whole way up the plot. Now, obviously my plans are very ambitious. I don't know how long or how quickly I will be able to get any of that done, but it's the end goal, and it might take maybe a couple of seasons to get it exactly how I think I want it to look. But I suppose my biggest learning so far is that my plans are changing week to week. So do not be surprised if the plot turns out something completely different to what I originally drew up and shared with you. So let's go in, and you might have already seen from some of this footage already what's been going on in the main growing space. So as you walk into the plot, you have my first bed, which is my 2 drills of potatoes, and then you might be able to see that I have put in 4 raised bed planters all the way up to the top of the shed. This was to face the beds that were here to stop the soil falling out, and I think they look fab. I spent hours trying to make them as true to a square as possible, to make them all in a straight line so that they actually look good for a few years to come. And I am super impressed with them. I'm so happy with how they look, and I'm going to bring you in, show you a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you how much each of it costs. Compost, soil, everything, manure, all in per bed. And I'd be interested to know what you think of the progress that I've made. So this is a little close-up of what the beds are looking like. I think they really do set it off, and then when I get the grass pathways sorted, they will look so much nicer. So I did say it was going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, and we have just had a massive downpour of rain, so everything's looking a little bit soggy right now. So when I first showed you the grow space and the plans and what I was going to do in the very early days, I mentioned I wanted to keep things as low cost as possible, and in comparison to what I've spent in the tiny garden, I've definitely got more grow space for my money. So in terms of these raised beds, I bought 12 boards of decking, pressure treated decking boards. The wood altogether came to €180. I did get a small discount on that. It was only like, I think it was like 10 or 20%. I know it's only small, but it does help. So I placed an order online at Woodies and just signed up to their newsletter basically, and got this discount code that enabled me to save just a little bit. I think it meant 1 or 2 boards ended up being free, which I was super happy with. And then each bed has cardboard underneath, because obviously I'm doing the no dig. Cardboard didn't cost me a penny. And then underneath, on top of the cardboard, I have 3 bags of farmyard manure. So each bag was €5 each. I did get those on sale from Homebase. They have a sale on their compost and manure at the minute. And then on top of that then went the mushroom manure mix. So I'd say about maybe 2 or 3 inches of mushroom manure mix went on top of that. And I also got that free because it was delivered to the top of the site. So I was able to put that across all 4 beds. Didn't cost me a penny. And then to top that off, to make it a little bit easier to grow in, obviously give everything the most nutrients as possible, I'm following the same thing that I did in my tiny garden, which was top dressed everything like I did last year with compost. And I really feel like that's the secret sauce. I'll obviously go in and maybe amend certain plants as the season goes on, but the compost bags, I've put 2 bags per bed. The bags were 60 litres, but they had a spring promotional bag on sale, which meant you got 25% extra free. I know, it's so confusing, just say how much it is on the packet. So basically each bag was 75 litres and I got 2 bags for 15. So that means each bed cost I need to get my calculator out. Each bed cost me all in €75. That's for the wood, the compost and everything that's in there ready for me to grow some stuff. So to me, that doesn't seem too extortionate, and it's definitely cheaper than the amount that I've spent on the beds and compost in the tiny garden. So I am obviously planning to utilise underneath the grow space that's here underneath the beds, the in-ground space. So my beds aren't as higher, I haven't had to use as much compost, and I haven't had to use obviously as much wood to make the height of the beds that I have at home. So overall, pretty happy with that. €45 per bed for the wood, €15 for compost and €15 for the manure, and the rest of the mushroom stuff was for free. And then I did actually get a box of screws as well, which was €14 for like, I don't know, there's like 200 or 300 in the box. So I don't know, I used four screws per corner. So I just didn't really include that, but I did buy that. So overall, pretty happy with how they're all looking. And then as you come up the other side of the plot, it's clear. So I've got rid of the trailer, I've got rid of the pallets. Well, obviously I've kept a couple of the pallets, they're handy to sit on, and also keep the cardboard down. So I've laid cardboard all along here. I need some more cardboard. I can never get enough cardboard to obviously suppress the weeds before I decide what I'm doing with this. Obviously hoping to put in a couple of brassica beds here. I'm thinking of maybe doing 2 separate ones. Then compared to the plan that I'd obviously shown you, I was hoping to maybe get a little nook so that I could probably put a bench in there to sit and admire all my plants. But overall, it's looking super clear. I'm super happy with how everything's looking. I know I keep saying I'm super happy, but I just feel so chuffed. I feel so accomplished that I was feeling like a little bit lost, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And now like I feel like it's really started to take shape and I'm able to obviously plant some stuff out. Now I do think I've probably overestimated how much I can actually plant out in this space at the moment. I need to give a good length of time for this cardboard to break down, for these weeds to be suppressed. So in terms of what I had initially planned to grow, I'm definitely going to be growing into these beds straight away. That's the whole idea of no dig. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to do deep rooted things like carrots, parsnips and any other deep rooted sort of root systemed plant. So I'm definitely going to be able to put in some onions and lettuce and beets and things like that. But I think I just need to be a little bit kind of on the cautious side this year and not be too over ambitious, because I need time for this area to obviously break down, the weeds to suppress, the worms to work their magic, draw everything down and obviously improve the soil that's there. Now obviously the chickens were along this area, mainly where the potato bed is, which is why I haven't amended it. But you know, if I need to go in and sprinkle some fertiliser over the top because things are looking like they'll struggle, absolutely can do that. I've got plenty buckets of chicken pellets and bloodfish and bone at home, which is handy. So as we move up from the progress on the brassica bed, we come to the front of the shed. So I have actually gone in and distributed all the flagstones outside the front of the shed. It's only temporary, they're not going to be there permanently because they're not fixed properly. I haven't put any like gravel or anything for them to obviously set in properly, but it was literally because they were stacked up in those two piles from when I originally had lifted them up. They were just constantly in the way, and the back of the shed isn't ready yet for them to be put down. It's massively waterlogged. I've got a leak on the tap, which I am convinced I fix every single time I come to the allotment. I'm like, yeah, that's good. I've tightened it up and, you know, everything's all snug and it's not leaking. And then I come back and it's like gushing again. So it's causing a lot of water ingress in the back of the shed. So if I put the flagstones down, they're only just going to sink in and going to be almost impossible for me to actually lift up when I want to go around and put them in properly. So I do have plans to sink a proper French drain in there, and I may even bring the French drain in all the way down along the plot and outside the front, put proper piping in so I can actually drain the plot. I think why not do it now? If there's ever water problems, you can see how waterlogged the water was today, just when I was showing you the beds there earlier. So there is obviously a water ingress problem. Everything doesn't seem to be draining that well. Everything's quite compacted. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to have to obviously dig trenches. I'm going to have to put gravel in, pipe in, everything. But I think if I make the time and do it before I divvy up the back of the shed, I think it's just going to pay dividends in a few years. Like, I'm just going to have a good, no excess water, and obviously good drainage. That's what drains are for. So that's why my flagstones are now facing the front of the shed, and I actually quite like it. Now the little galvanised pot that I have at the front is my little fire pit, and obviously I can burn the ash, and I can put obviously the ash onto beds for crops that like obviously whatever nutrients the ash obviously gives them. I have some silver skin onions, spring onions and some lettuce to plant out. I must actually give you all an update. If you missed the live, I am doing a giveaway for the first birthday of the channel. My channel turns 1. I think it's on the 20th of April, and that was the date of my first YouTube upload. So it's been a wild year, and it's just a small way for me to give back to you. So what I'm going to be doing is giving away an electric propagator. Either, obviously the winner has a choice. I was either going to do the 4-top propagator that I have, or I know a lot of people like to use windowsill space, so I was thinking maybe the electric Super 7 if that's what you would prefer. And the reason I'm giving that away is because we're still early enough in the season to obviously use it, and it has been a total game changer for me over the last 3 years of growing. I cannot believe I've only got it this year, and it just means I'm able to start things off sooner. I'm able to start things earlier in terms of like chilies and peppers and things like that, and have so much more success with the germination and obviously the success of the little seedling since they germinate. So I want to obviously give that to somebody else because I feel like that would help you guys. So I will obviously do an announcement in and around, I think it's in 2 weeks time, and all you need to do to enter is watch the video in 2 weeks time. I will make it available to you how to enter, what you need to do, and it's fairly straightforward basically. So just be subscribed to make sure you don't miss that update, and make sure to stay tuned for next week's video. We're going to be in the tiny garden. We have loads of catching up to do. I have a sweet pea frame to make, various things that need planting out, and it needs a good old sweep and clear out. I am going to plant out my onions and lettuce, and I will see you all next week in the tiny garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.